Finally, a story about something that started 50 years ago. The St. Louis Symphony Youth Orchestra is still going strong, not just because it keeps attracting new, young, talented musicians, but because, as Ruth Ezell shows us, so many of the alumni, many years later, still feel a strong connection.
Every performance by the St. Louis Symphony Youth Orchestra is memorable, but this is one for the books. On January 11th, 2020, youth orchestra members performed side by side with former members in celebration of the orchestra's 50th anniversary season. Alumni flocked to Powell Symphony Hall from across town and across the country when word of the concert and reunion went out on social media. The response was so enthusiastic, it turned out the stage wasn't big enough to hold all the alumni musicians who wanted to play. They ended up taking turns. Dr. Jonathan Chun, that's him in the center, traveled here all the way from Portland, Oregon, and brought his children with him to share in the experience. The colorectal surgeon played in the youth orchestra from 1987 to 1992.
Well, it was such a huge part of my life for 5 years. I mean, it was literally every Saturday afternoon for those 5 years was pretty much taken up by youth orchestra time. I didn't honestly know about this because I'm not on social media. And one of my friends who's here knew about it, and she texted me and said, "I know you're not on Facebook, but I thought you might want to know about this."
I felt like I had found my people, my group, and it was wonderful.
Joyce Hammond came in from New York. Hammond was just 10 years old and the youth orchestra's youngest member when it was formed in 1970. Those early days set her on a path to an enviable career in music.
I'm on Broadway with Phantom of the Opera, concertmaster there, and I've been there for about 30 years. With the flexibility that show has provided me, I've been able to work with a lot of different artists, chamber music, jazz artists, rock and roll artists. I've recently been in the latest film of Bruce Springsteen. I was lucky enough to solo with him on the end of his tour. Worked with Paul McCartney, played with Aretha Franklin. It's been a really extraordinary, fun career, and I really blame so much of my going into music on the St. Louis Youth Orchestra.
Christine Tausik-Sassi, who teaches violin at Washington University, was the YO's first concertmaster.
I finished that first year, and I was sad to leave, but I had to because I graduated from high school, and I went on then to the Eastman School. And to remember those feelings, even as I drove here today, I remembered what it was like to come down every Saturday and rehearse at Powell Hall. And to see my friends and to be part of this great, great community of musicians.
It seems that all of the alums of the youth orchestra have very special stories to tell. And whether they went on to become professional musicians or not, they're making a big impact on their communities.
This time, let's do pepperoni pizza on every note. So D, 1, pepperoni, and I want everybody in the middle. Give me about 3 inches. You ready? 5, 6, pepperoni.
We caught up with veteran music educator James McKay at Jennings Junior High School, where he teaches string instruments. What McKay started as a pilot program in 2014 has since expanded across the Jennings School District. He also runs a nonprofit organization that provides instruction to students in schools that don't have music programs of their own. McKay recalled the impact playing in the youth orchestra had on him more than 2 decades ago as one of a handful of African Americans in the ensemble.
Being African American in our community, symphonic music isn't foreign, but it's not commonplace either. So going and actually having the opportunity to perform on Powell Hall stage with some of my counterparts, it was really eye-opening, and it showed me a world of opportunity different than what I experience in my own community every day.
On the far side, on this side, it's everybody who is pretty much well, and they've come for care, but they're pretty darn good.
Medicine, not music, is the subject being discussed by Dr. Jason Kuhn of St. Louis University Medical School. He's executive director of the school's Bander Center for Medical Business Ethics. From 1991 to 93, Dr. Kuhn was a youth orchestra violinist. These days, he only plays at home with his young daughters. But his musical background actually comes in handy in the operating room. That's where Dr. Kuhn performs gastrointestinal surgeries that last for hours, and where listening to music is said to help reduce anxiety, improve focus, and boost the efficiency of the surgical team.
You know, when I was in surgical training, right, I listened to everybody else's music while I was operating. And when you become the attending surgeon, you get to pick the music. So I think there is a certain thing about kind of, curating that playlist in a way that is kind of magical, because if I can get, people to come and operate with me, the circulating nurse or the scrub tech or someone, because the playlist is pretty good in my operating room, I'm pretty nice, you know what I mean, kind of a thing. I think I can kind of wrap that all into one package, and I think I can be more successful that way.
Wendy Lee was a student at Parkway Central High School when in 1970 she became a member of the newly organized St. Louis Symphony Youth Orchestra.
The youth orchestra had a much bigger orchestra. We could play literature that it was just not possible in high school orchestra. We had the full complement of strings and winds, brass, percussion. So it was really wonderful to open up music like that. Copland, a lot of music that would have to be rental, a lot of music that the symphony obviously had in their library that high schools would just not be able to produce. So it was marvelous that we had an experience. And many times we were playing music that was probably above our heads, but amazingly, all the musicians would rise to the occasion, and it always worked.
As a professional musician, Lee wears a number of hats, including that of music director and conductor of the Metropolitan Orchestra of St. Louis, which is based in Kirkwood. And she's remained in touch with her conductor from her days in the YO, founder Leonard Slatkin.
I remember very distinctly that, without the actual dates of 50 years ago, but it took about a year from when I arrived here in 1968 to just get the pieces in place. There was no outlet for young musicians to get together outside of a school environment, and those schools were only the ones where there were music programs, to make music together. Most major cities do have a youth orchestra of some kind that represents the entire area. Well, we finally got everything together. Everybody was very supportive. They knew we needed it. And we had Powell Hall. So real attraction. About 650 kids showed up over the course of several Saturdays for auditions. And it was so sweet, and it felt horrible having to turn down so many. But we had to wheedle it down. I think we got to 125 for that first orchestra. And when we finally arrived at the first rehearsal, nobody quite knowing what to do, and we started. And I think in my whole life, I've never heard a sound that to me was that wonderful.
When the YO hit its 40-year milestone, we introduced you to 5 of its members. We thought you might like to know how they're doing.
Originally, I was actually going to play the flute. I was pretty set on it, but my band director pulled up the French horn and he said, if you play piano, you might be good at this, and you can get a lot of scholarships for this. And my mom was like, playing the horn.
Shelby Nugent earned a music degree at Northwestern University and makes her home in Arizona, where she plays second horn in the Phoenix Symphony.
I started playing the cello in 4th grade because we had violin, viola, and cello at my elementary school. and so I played that for 2 years. But then I know I wanted to go to Chaminade, and they didn't have an orchestra. They had a band, and then you could play bass in the band, so I decided just it'd be an easier switch, and I always kind of wanted to play the bass.
10 years ago, Caleb Small told us his college plans included obtaining a degree in chemical engineering, which he did. Small also earned a law degree and is working at a prominent international law firm based in New York City. Grant Rue also moved to New York, along with his family.
I think music is a great way to go because you make a bunch of new friends through orchestras and through chamber groups, and you meet a bunch of really nice people.
Rue is now a Harvard graduate, and while he applies to medical schools, he's doing research at New York's Mount Sinai Hospital. Musically, Rue hasn't skipped a beat. He's played in several orchestras and chamber groups and finds time to teach cello students. Jasmine Scott's musical journey went off the rails at the end of her sophomore year at Indiana University. That's when Scott injured one of her wrists so severely it dashed her hopes of a full-time professional career. Unsure what to do next, she took a hiatus from college.
I couldn't play for a good amount of months, and I felt like I didn't know where I belonged. Like violin-wise, life-wise, just because I've spent so many years trying to achieve where I was, and then to end up leaving without even a degree felt kind of defeating.
One day, Scott found out about the music therapy program at Maryville University. She learned to play the guitar, a program requirement, earned her degree in 2018, and now works with hospice patients. By the way, Scott hasn't given up the violin entirely. She held her own front and center with fellow musicians January 11th. When you discovered the music therapy program, it sounds like there was therapy taking place on both sides. I mean, you were learning how to help others. Mm-hmm. How did the experience help you?
It taught me a lot about myself and what I'm capable of doing. And I used to think violin was all I had, but through that, obviously learning that there's so many things that someone can do with their life, and you don't just have one path, that it can take many different paths to get to where you end up being, and it's okay if it slows down or goes off track, because that's what happens in life.
Up high.
Jacolia Wong was YO concertmaster when the organization turned 40. At that time, she received occasional coaching from her professional counterpart in the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra, David Halen. In 2020, Wong shares the stage with Halen. She's on her second one-year contract with the SLSO.
It took a long time for me to get used to addressing him as David, as opposed to Mr. Halen. And being able to come back and play in the same section as him is just crazy, and be colleagues with him. After all these years, now we're colleagues, and that's just such a wild concept.
And where is Ward Stair, who was youth orchestra conductor 10 years ago? Stair is music director of the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra in New York State. The Grammy nominee is in high demand around the world as a guest conductor. In fact, so is current youth orchestra conductor Gemma New. That's why she was unable to wield the baton at the reunion concert. No worries, Kevin Macbeth, director of the SLSO's In Unison Chorus, was on the case. Leonard Slatkin was on the road too, January 11th, but he was with the orchestra in spirit.
Making music together, especially when you don't know most of the other ones who you're playing with, that's extraordinary. There are not many professions that are like that. And to see the approval of an audience and get out of the school environment, but still one where you're learning at the same time, it's valuable for everybody involved, audience, orchestra, board members, whoever supports it. And I'm so thrilled that it's doing as well as it is. I'm getting better all the time.